hope is that uh, yeah, my hope is that this educational will just provide some more information about the state of reproductive care and really the horrors that pregnant people and children are facing in Gaza. I will hopefully highlight some of the intersectional issues of reproductive health, the occupation, and Israel's intentional genocide against the Palestinian people. And really, I think the genocide is a reproductive justice issue because at the heart of the genocide, the people of Palestine have been denied bodily autonomy, which is really what reproductive justice is about. Um, Reproductive health is being controlled by Israeli military forces. They have controlled bodily movement through forced evacuations. And really, they control whether people live or die in Gaza. Um, there's a long history of reproductive oppression in occupied Gaza. According to the UN Population Fund, before October 7th, an approximate 94,000 Palestinian women were already without access to sexual and reproductive health services. And now the situation is just all the more dire. Um, Currently, of Gaza's population of 2.2 million people, approximately 572,000, or 1 in 4, are women and girls of reproductive age in need of access to reproductive health care. And then an estimated 50,000 people are pregnant in Gaza. 5,500 dates in November alone. And estimates show that in the next several months, more than 37,000 will be forced to deliver without electricity or medical supplies. It's estimated that right now 180 women are giving birth every day. And for expectant mothers, access to medical facilities to have a safe birth is just essentially non-existent. The horrific attacks and Israeli airstrikes have pushed the healthcare system in Gaza really just to a state of collapse. Women are being forced to give birth in the streets, on top of rubble, in overcrowded shelters. According to the World Health Organization, at least 6 hospitals in Gaza have shut down. On October 8th, the Palestinian Family Planning and Protection Association, which is an organization that basically provided health services in Gaza since 1964, they had their only center in Gaza decimated. Maternity wards are being attacked. And then of last week, Israeli forces raided Al-Shifa Hospital, which is the largest medical complex in Gaza, which is also a violation of international humanitarian law, which prohibits firing on hospitals. So for pregnant people who are scheduled to get routine care, people seeking contraception or abortion care are just no longer able to because clinics are either closed or destroyed. And then even if patients can get to a hospital, many hospitals are just really overwhelmed. They're getting thousands of new patients per day with serious injuries, and they're running out of very basic supplies like dressing and gauze needed just to treat wounds. And so hospitals have really been providing services to pregnant women when they're in active labor, just because they have such limited resources and are so over capacity. There's been a total siege on basic necessities and supplies. Anesthesia is not available. Pregnant people don't have access to clean water, food, decent shelter. According to the UN Development Program, pregnant and lactating women need 7.5 liters of water a day to keep themselves and their babies healthy. But now in Gaza, there's only 3 liters a day that's available per person. And so there are reports of pregnant women who are suffering from exhaustion, fatigue, chronic stress, starvation, headaches, pain, all of those things. There's also a severe lack of basic medical supplies, as I was mentioning. And this also includes things like menstrual hygiene products, contraceptives, which has led to a rise in STI cases and urinary tract infections. It also includes supplies that are necessary for labor and delivery. So recently, the UN has resorted to basically sending out emergency delivery kits, and they include a bar of soap, a plastic sheet, scissors to cut an umbilical cord, gloves, and an instruction pamphlet on how to guide women to deliver on their own. And as of last week, those supplies were being held up in other countries, including Egypt, and it was unclear at that point when they would arrive. Of course, there's also just little to no resources to treat medical complications that might come along with pregnancy. And recently, pregnant women's exposure to the white phosphorus has been increasing the risk of very serious birth defects and need of medical care. There's also the issue of the forced evacuations. As a result of Israel's October 13th evacuation order, 1.1 million residents were forced to leave northern Gaza, and that included 19,000 pregnant women. There was testimony that was shared from one pregnant woman who was forced to leave her home 4 times, where she just had a small bag of her things. And she said, each time feels like a race against death. So with so many people who are now being forced to evacuate or who have been displaced, the risk of violence against women is also increasing. This can be especially dangerous for women and girls who are in transit, living in crowded shelters, or finding themselves just in other grave conditions. Pregnant women are also miscarrying as a result of stress, the shock, the traumatic impact of being forced to flee. And there's added complications for these women. They might have a miscarriage at home and would need additional medical care or checkups to make sure also they don't have like excessive bleeding or other complications. If a pregnant person had a miscarriage at a later stage, they might go into labor with a stillborn baby, which can be really dangerous. And so doctors are simply just not able to provide those kinds of supportive services. Then for those who try to access hospitals for care or to deliver their babies, many of the main roads in Gaza have also been destroyed. And so a hospital that might have been just minutes away could now take hours to get to. And people have described the transit from where they're at to going to hospitals as just really a traumatic experience. And then lastly, there has been just a really serious impact for children and babies. Since October 7th, Israel's killed over 4,000 Palestinian children, with some reports estimating that one child is being killed every 10 minutes. And I would argue that this is really an intentional part of the genocide against the Palestinian people. According to the organization Save the Children, the number of children who have been killed in Gaza in just 1 month is higher than the number of children killed per year across all of the world's conflict zones since 2019. Of these children, the Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza reports that Israel has killed at least 132 babies who were under the age of 1. And then at Al-Shifa Hospital, 2 premature babies who basically rely on incubators for warmth and oxygen, they died after the neonatal ICU stopped being functional because of a lack of electricity. And there are still 30 more who have been who are at risk, and just today were evacuated from that hospital. So obviously, as I'm talking through some of this information, the conditions are dire. Death tolls are increasing daily, and really, women and children are facing the brunt of these attacks. So I'm looking forward just to having more discussion about this with everyone today. And something also I'm thinking we might want to consider is maybe the mobilization having some kind of statement on reproductive justice and Palestine. So maybe something we could discuss. But I hope this information is helpful just to provide some additional context around just the horrific attacks and what's happening to Palestinian people right now.
Right.